Hi guys, welcome along to the August webinar. Today we have Ryan McEvoy from Rosemont Stud. So Macca, welcome along.
Thanks, Corey. Robbie, yeah, nice to be with you guys. Blowing a gale out there today, as it has been all week. So nice to be bunkered down in the office.
Yeah, it's a bit. I think it's statewide, so even races called off during the week. So speaking of races, Robbie, it's been a quiet period for us this start of the racing season. So just gearing up for the spring.
That's it. We don't have too many planned to kick off this time of the year because normally in Melbourne with this crazy weather, you can get a lot of wet tracks. So sometimes late season, we tend to concentrate on the synthetic and then get our horses ready to kick off early September when the tracks are on the up, to be or not to be. And Ray McNeary and them are all kicking off in September. So, yeah, a little bit quiet at the moment, but it'll heat up down the track.
Yeah, doesn't help when they call off the races when we do have one.
Especially when he was second favourite and looked a great chance. But anyway, that's the way it goes.
So, anyway, today's episode we're going to focus on a stallion that we all love actually, and he looks like he's quite exciting. HANSEATIC. So HANSEATIC, if you want to touch on his race career, Ryan, he stands at Rosemont Stud now, but as a racehorse, he was an absolute superstar.
Yeah, listen, he was dynamite, dynamite 2-year-old in particular, Corey. A horse that really, I think, was a really eye-catching horse. He was a horse that I'd heard good raps on, sort of about this time, sort of that August September time of his 2-year-old year, and you sort of heard the whisper that Freedman's have got a street boss colt down there that goes like the wind. And then, of course, you see him on debut in the Merson Cooper Stakes, obviously a pre-Christmas 2-year-old race, and he won that dominantly, defeated Away Game, who, of course, that filly 2 starts later went on to win a Magic Millions in such impressive fashion. So clearly, the form was going to stand up out of that race. He came back as a sort of a summer 2-year-old and bolted in the Blue Diamond Preview. He won that hands down. Luke Curry rode him, and he put a real space on his opposition in that race. And then the natural progression into the Prelude, where nothing really went right for him. It was that day, the punters may remember, of being a really on-speed day at Caulfield. Caulfield was racing pretty sort of leaderish around that time. Obviously, your good Magnus horse, benefited from that. He was a good on-speed horse and won that race. But he got back in that Blue Diamond Prelude and got shuffled back, and it wasn't really race run to suit. But he got to the outside and flashed home and won that in really eye-catching manner, and was subsequently the Blue Diamond favourite off that. And a horse that Luke Curry rode him. He fell off the night before the Blue Diamond when the horse was sort of even money favourite, and he was a bit of a quirky horse, HANSEATIC. Sort of had to know him, and so to have a change of jockey, a jockey replace him the morning of, that had never really sat on the horse before, certainly didn't help his cause. And then he got sort of caught on the inside, barrier 1, and got out late and flashed home and just ran sort of Tagaloa to a short half head. So he wins that race. He basically emulates Rancher as sort of winning the Merson Cooper, the Preview, the Prelude, and the Diamond. But listen, he's an exciting horse. He's been unbelievably well patronised by the Victorian breeders and interstate breeders as well. And really excited to see him kick off now. They've sort of got to that stage now where they're 2-year-olds, and the raps are really positive, which is great.
Yeah, and Robbie, I remember you saying that obviously your great mate and the late great Dean Lester, he basically said to you, this guy is something out of the box. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, that's right. As you know, with Dean being an analyst, they don't always worry about who's won. It's about the data they collect in sectional times and sustained speed and all those sorts of things. And I remember him saying that this horse is a star. He's got all the right credentials to be something very special. And so we followed him from the get-go. Well, we followed him literally when Glenn Fiddick ran second to him. So we did literally follow him. But, you know, the thing about the Street Boss is that they're a lot better as they get older. And, you know, typical colt, they whiz off the stud early because that's sort of the market thing and the strategy. But we have no doubt on the data that we've seen, and using the quarterback as an example, also a quirky horse. This horse would have been an outstanding horse as he developed, and he already was one. So we're pretty excited to go to him, and he's one that I've bought a breeding right in because he's got such a deep family, and we think of all the positive things that Ryan said. Then he's gonna be a real deal stallion. So. Yeah, so we've invested in every angle, not just buying them. We've invested in breeding, and yeah, so it's if he lives up to our opinion, we're going to have a lot of success.
Yeah, and Ryan, I mean, the question that most people would ask is he wears the Godolphin blue in his race career. How did you guys manage to snatch him away and have him standing at Rosemont Stud?
When you won
Yeah,
the
it was
toss, did you?
an interesting time. He of course, well, I mean, to begin with, Godolphin have sort of typically had a policy of standing Group 1 winners only, and if you look at their stallion roster, it'll show that. But yeah, it's sort of interesting how it came about. We'd also been in touch with Dean, that as Robbie had mentioned, and he was a big push on the horse and said, "Geez, if there was an opportunity here, you should be really, you know, a dog on a bone here, because he's a higher rating 2-year-old that, you know, I've applied a figure to in many a year." You know, like Robbie, we had the respect we had for Dean, and his assessment couldn't be higher. So that gave us the confidence to put together a proposal to Darley and try and secure the horse. There were plenty of farms in there as well, whacking away and trying to do the same thing. But credit to Darley, Vin Cox and Andy McEvoy, Jason Walsh and the team at the time. We still do have a great relationship with Darley and Godolphin, and we support their stallion strongly. And I think that, you know, that was in our favour. And you know, put together a strong deal to secure him, and you know, and thankfully that was accepted. Yeah, beautiful horse physically. Fell in love with him when we first saw him at Pinecliff. Gorgeous horse, and you sort of look at his pedigree, it's just as impressive. Of course, he's out of a Fast Exceed and Excel mare closely related to Black Caviar and All Too Hard, that unbelievable Scandinavia family. So he ticked a lot of boxes from what we were trying to achieve with a young stallion. We wanted to get a good looking, young, dynamic 2-year-old onto the roster. That he may not have won a Group 1, but clearly exhibited Group 1 ability, and you know, and guys like Dean Lester and Daniel O'Sullivan certainly back that up in their official analysis. Yeah.
And you mentioned that they've been well received, but just numbers wise, how well received? You can see their first season, 197 mares, which is incredible. But what sort of numbers has he covered now going into his first season on the track?
So yeah, covered 197 mares year 1. Backed that up with about 175 year 2 and 150 odd year 3. He's well over 100 mares again this season. Yeah, I think one, he's really well priced for a stallion of his profile. You know, by a stallion that really resonates with Victorian breeders and has done such a good job down here. You know, and he gets a great type. That's been perhaps the catalyst for ensuring his big books in year 2 and 3. You know, breeders have been really pleased with what they've had. First crop yearlings this year sold for up to 375,000, 250,000, 160,000, 220,000. So every breeder that's by and large, every breeder that's using him is getting a positive, is having a positive experience by using him, and relevant to the service fee they're paying. So that's been really exciting. Yeah. So just hope that now the last box to tick is that they can come out and gallop, and certainly the feedback we've had to date is pretty exciting. Yeah.
We might touch on a trainer's view there, Robbie. So you mentioned that you have a breeding right in him. I was talking to you off air, and he's the only stallion you've ever purchased a breeding right in. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. And for all the reasons that we were saying earlier, is that he had the Group 1 talent, and as you can tell by the 197 matings, nobody worries about non-Group 1 winners these days when you see the success of Not a Single Doubt and I'm Invincible, that very similar horses that ran second at Group 1 level to in Group 1 form, and it's the ratings that Dean Lester and Daniel O'Sullivan and that sort of counts these days, because horses go off the stud quickly. He probably arguably should have won the Blue Diamond anyway. So with all of those positive stats, I was pretty keen to buy a breeding right, because he's out of such a deep family. So no doubt I didn't share that opinion just with myself. With 197 mares booked to him, I think that there was a few people that are pretty keen to see their progeny on the track.
Yeah, and he probably, as far as stallion pedigrees go, he probably has Robbie Griffiths written all over him, doesn't he? With Street Boss, being by Street Boss, like the quarterback, your Group 1 winner, and then out of the family of Magnus. I don't think you had too much choice, did you?
No, exactly. Yeah, with the family of that depth, and most of the winning photos on the wall to do with Street Boss and Magnus. So we're pretty happy to secure a nom in him, that's for sure.
Yeah, and obviously you supported them at the sales as well. We purchased two really, really nice ones. I know that there were several on our short list through the sale season in all sales. But we thought we bought the best one, so we'll find out if that comes to fruition. But you bought two really nice ones, and you also have one in training that was sent down by Rosemont. How have you found them to train so far?
Really good. Yeah, really good. Their attitude's been terrific. They want to eat a lot, which is great. So they're working with us for sure, So we've done more with the Darcy Bell colt, because he looked, physically more developed at the sales, hence he was a more expensive colt of the two that we bought. And he's really handled, he's in training now, and he's really handled the workload incredibly well. Great moving horse that all the riders love. And so we were pretty keen to buy him when we seen him at the sales. And, you can see the pedigree, is already working with All Too Hard in the first dam there that's produced Danny St. Darcy, I should say. So the pedigree works. All the nicks and crosses work for us. He's a ripping type. Sarasana is close up in the family that we won the Group 2 guineas with. So there's so many pluses to bring him home. So we're pretty excited about hitting the big go button, but the little one we've touched so far is quite impressive,
Yeah, and Ryan, obviously he came out of this one in particular came out of your draft at Melbourne Premier. We loved him. We had a fair bit of competition on him, but you guys actually stayed in the ownership as well. So you must have a big opinion of this guy.
Loved him. Yeah, he was a horse that was accepted into Magic Millions as well. And we had a few HANSEATICs that we wanted to obviously sort of split up. But no, he wouldn't have been out of place at an Easter sale or a Magic Millions. This horse, beautiful colt, handled the prep really well, got a really good brain on him. Not surprising that Robbie's, the feedback he's getting from the jockeys that say what a smart horse he is. He was a smart horse to prep. I still remember our yearling manager. I often ask her sort of midway through the prep, who's the horse that is the most willing and the horse that sort of wants to do it naturally. And she straight away said the Darcy Bell colt. Yeah, he's the one that came in and just wanted to impress the whole time, So I love hearing that about sort of that, and particularly when you sort of hear that sort of feedback with a colt. So no, he was a beautiful horse from a good strong black type family. You guys have obviously had great success with it. Sarasana there in that second dam. Um, yeah, beautiful sharp style of colt. Can't wait to see him when he appears on track.
And obviously, he's closely related there, Robbie, to Sarasana, who's a Sandown Guineas winner. But I think sometimes because she's won the Group 2 at the mile, people forget how precocious she was. And she kicked off with an emphatic 1,000-metre victory as a 2-year-old.
Yeah, she did. She kicked off in December and absolutely annihilated him. And she won by a fair margin and ran very fast time. So she always sort of set herself up to know that the talent was there. And at the end of the day, she's at a Twilight Royale that, won a size produce at 2. So there's a lot of 2-year-old depth in the family, including the half brother, Unstoppable, that was Blue Diamond Standard as well. So, I think he's got such a great pedigree to run early and has the stamina there and the strength of data in the family to train on as well. So, hence the reason we had a lot of competition to buy him, and it was good that some of the competition that were on him, come up to you straight afterwards and bought some shares in him as well, so they didn't miss out. So I think that's an endorsement of the quality of colt that he is.
Yeah, I won't name names, but you had some seriously good judges punching away there on the horse. Some seriously good judges. So yeah, so no, I thought I was rapt to see you land him. I think he's the sort of horse that, like you said, half brother to Unstoppable. It was Blue Diamond class horse placed in the previews, preludes. Danny Sadazi, who was of course black type as well. Yeah, he's got that profile that would not surprise at all to see him turn up in those sort of races as well.
Yeah, and for those following the webinar, this will go out probably next week. But so when you get this will be a few days old. But there are currently, as it stands, there are availability of shares in him. So if you wanted to get into a horse that potentially takes you to those races, early 2-year-old stakes races, then this guy is the guy. And Robbie, in terms of our crop at the moment, if we go away from HANSEATIC for a second, across our whole crop, this guy would be right up there with the best of them, wouldn't he?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. He's been the most precocious. He's resembling his pedigree that we've spoken about, and the brain and his willingness. So we've done sort of more with him than a lot of the other 2-year-olds. Hence, his genetics are coming out. So if someone's lucky enough to snap up the minority of shares that are there, there's not many. I know that. So they really should, because it's not often you get insider trading and have a head start on, we got to watch them walk up and down to the yearling sales, but when the saddle goes on, it's a different story. So knowing that there's some, sharpness there, I think it's a great opportunity for someone.
Yep. And this guy's a cracker, but sometimes by having a superstar like him or potential superstar like him, you can overshadow the others. But we probably got one of the bargain buys of the sale season getting this guy for 110,000 with a page like that and with a physical like he has.
Oh, absolutely. He's a beautiful horse, and as you can see, if you use the picture as a bit of a backdrop, his bottom's so much higher than his front. He's with us. So being a 21st of November foal, we haven't put him under we haven't allowed him to do as much as the other boy, because we feel as though Mother Nature's not ready to let him produce on the track yet. But he's a ripping colt. He's got another one. He's got a great brain. He's educated everything really well thus far, but we have intentionally held him up a bit until he balances out in his body. But he's another one with a great pedigree, and he could easily be a 2-year-old in the autumn, based on the mare running well. She could run well at 2, and the second dam's got all Blue Diamond form and things like that. So it goes back to it's quite a few horses in that family, like Mannington, all the way back. There's a lot of 2-year-old depth, and you probably find if he was an earlier foal, we'd be having him a bit more precocious. But because he's a late November foal that's still growing, we're just taking our time.
Yep. And we also have a nice 3-year-old, which probably the stable knows he's nice, but he hasn't hit the track yet because he had a setback. But we have quite a good opinion of Griezmann.
Yeah, well, we bought the brother the year before, and his only trial was very, very impressive, and then he had a slight setback. So he's taken his time to get there for those reasons, but the talent's very good. And well, these days you can jump onto racing.com and actually watch the trial. But he's a very impressive horse, and he's grown out beautifully. So this guy will do everything like his brother, and yeah, so there's a lot of pluses there, and we like you don't often get Danehill symmetrical son and daughter, which you see there with Exceed and Excel and Mannington, and they're fantastic Danehills to be talking about, with Exceed and Excel having various slipper winners, and then Mannington running so well, in a blue diamond. So when you line breed to those sort of strengths, which we look very seriously at our line breeding to enhance our chances, and he's got a super pedigree.
Yeah, and Ryan, I might touch on. Yeah,
just add that. I'll just add to that. Yeah, I mean, he was another colt there from Aristia that we really rated highly. Up there in the top 2 or 3 HANSEATICs that we rated at Premier. To add to Robbie, loved his pedigree. HANSEATIC out of a Lonhro mare, so that Street Boss Lonhro cross has clearly been effective. She dances, a fast stakes winning filly, bred on that cross. Heuristic, another one. There's 1 or 2 others. That Street Boss Lonhro cross has worked really well, and I love those pedigrees. That Second Dam Romnea was a really high class 2-year-old. I think she won 3 on the trot at 2, including a stakes win at 2, and then trained on to be a high class group winning 3 and 4-year-old mare. Third Dam, of course, Mannington, who was a star 2-year-old, and that's a big black type family. That's as good a family as you find in the stud book, that Mannington influence. So I really agree. I thought you bought him really well. I thought he's sort of that horse that was going to really stand out, and I thought he had the capability of making a lot more than he did. So he's a lovely colt, and glad to hear he's coming along.
And Ryan, you'd be fairly across that. It's an interesting pedigree with the Godolphin influence there. Obviously, HANSEATIC being a racehorse for Darley, and also this pedigree having a strong Godolphin flavour to it.
Yeah, exactly. So we've had, we there was another colt sold this year, that the colt that made 375,000 was also from a Godolphin female family. I don't know how sort of relevant all that is, but I just reiterate what Robbie said. That line breeding is fascinating. I think it's with Street Boss, it's relevant. You look at the majority of Street Boss stakes winners, and they do have that interesting pattern, which this horse is bred on. November Foal, but he was quite a forward maturing horse, forward sort of physical, and I hear that you're giving him a bit of time to develop, and I think that'll only help him. But I've had a lot of time for that colt when we saw him, and like I said, more often than not, when they're Second Dam and Third Dam are real quality mares like Romney and Mannington, they'll gallop.
That's good feedback. And anyway, Robbie, just before we touch on this, we've got a third HANSEATIC in training at the moment that Rosemont sent us down only just recently, and I believe she's doing quite well as well.
Well, she's another one that's been typical of the 2 boys. She's got a terrific attitude and wants to eat and please us, and the guys are really wrapped with the way she feels under them. And we're just starting to increase the speed a bit now. So now that that's happening, we'll get to see what's available there. But we're really pleased, and we expect a very positive outcome when we hit the go button. So we're allowed to mention her name. We'll get Ryan to ask if that's okay, if we can mention her race name.
He disappeared.
Here he is.
I just had the gardener right at the front. He was making all sorts of noise, so I just had to tell him to hold off for 5.
I thought you're doing the futures betting on the filly. Are we allowed to mention her name or not?
Absolutely, yeah. Of course.
So Melrose. So there you go.
Yeah.
That's what Ryan really did, Corey. He just started out to have a futures bet, get in early. But
Yeah. So,
no, she's another one that's been very typical of the boys. She's got a great attitude, and we're really pleased with her.
yeah, and obviously we've spent all our time speaking about HANSEATIC on this webinar because of our invested interest currently. But looking there, we also have a couple of really nice Shamus awards coming through, Robbie, with Michaela, looking like she might be a little bit special.
Well, she's one that we bred because, as you know, buying a breeding right. Obviously, I'm a breeder and have mares and so on, and we're very interested in the Nixon crosses to enhance our chances. And sometimes, you know, you've got a greater chance of doing that if you do your own matings and then hope that they come out, you know, in physical good order. And she's a filly that we sent her Reduced Choice mum off to Shamus Award, and we got a beautiful filly. And she went to the line pretty much untested on debut, with had traffic problems and couldn't get out. And the horse that won the race is a stakes performer of the McEvoy camp. So she was a little bit immature, so we popped her out, but she's a filly that's got a super future ahead of her.
And Maka, if you want to touch on the rest of the Rosemont, well, it's not a draft, it's a roster, but yeah, so your roster, it's pretty impressive and it's starting to come together.
Yeah, it's starting to take shape. It can be a long process. Sort of forming the right stallions. It's a farm that you get sort of the opportunity or offered to stand a lot of horses. But it's important to be selective and really believe in the stallions that you do stand. We've clearly got the ambition is to build the stallion roster and build the numbers and offer a good variety of commercial and high quality stallions that are attractive to breeders. So we're working away at that. Shamus Award is the flag bearer, and he's been a terrific stallion, and on 6 Group 1 winners, all conceived off fees of less than 30 grand. It just shows you what an upgrader he is. His statistics are outstanding. He's 6.5% stakes winners to runners. He's an elite Group 1 winners to runner stallion. And I think this year he's at a fee that is unbelievably, value attractive in terms of value. He's 35 grand. He's hard to find a stallion that has his statistics at that sort of fee. So he's a great young stallion and still a lot of blue sky ahead of him. He's averaged a book of 170 mares in the last 4 years. So we think the best is yet to come for Shamus. HANSEATIC we've touched on, obviously really exciting, and particularly exciting next sort of 6 months just to start to see them rip along as 2-year-olds. Extreme Warrior was a really sharp, dynamic son of Extreme Choice. The highest rated 3-year-old by Extreme Choice. He was a good 2-year-old and had that sort of wow moment in the Blue Sapphire where he sort of scooted along and sort of demolished a really hot field that day. He's an exciting prospect, and excited to launch a horse called Duel this year, Son of Snitzel, beautiful looking Son of Snitzel, a $1.2 million Inglis Easter yearling from a big family out of a stakes winning Shamardale mare. And he's been really well found by the breeders, again at great value, just 10 grand. And you're looking to breed a type, he's the horse, at that sort of lower level. So all stallions offer something a bit different. All great types, and I'm really confident that they're the sort of horses that will get you a good looking commercial yearling. But just as excited to see those sort of stallions be effective racetrack stallions as well.
And very young roster outside of Shamus Award, very young roster there that could be anything in years to come.
Yeah, exactly. I think Shamus, that the best is ahead for Shamus, given you look through the quality of mares he's covered in the last 4 years, and we're only going to start to see the emergence of those horses in the next couple of years. And if you can see what he's done Like I said, his 6 Group 1 winners have been conceived off fees of less than 30 grand. Probably gives you an indication, a bit of an idea of the quality of mares he's covered up to that point. So to now start to see, the better bred progeny, get to the races. I think that's going to, we're going to see him really catapult up the size table. I'm firmly of that belief. HANSEATIC's got all the numbers and the support in the world. He's backed up by some, Robbie's a breeding right holder, Gilguy Farm, Coolmore are breeding right holders. Some of the best breeders in the country have got access and exposure into HANSEATIC, so he couldn't have had a better foundation laid now. So, and Extreme Warrior is also, a strongly sort of supported stallion with a great bunch of shareholders that have been really supportive of him. So, look, we're onwards and upwards. So sort of always looking for the next hot young stallion to join us. It's a process, but we're punching away.
Must be pretty busy taking calls for 197 mares for one stallion.
Yeah. Look, we've got a good team here to do that, and there's a process there, and breeders are put a lot of work in it themselves in terms of their matings, and often you can assist them with that. You can give them a bit of an idea of what the stallion is throwing and what style of mare that might suit him. Those sort of things that we like to be helpful and assistive with. I think breeders are pretty cluey. They sort of know what they want and what they're trying to achieve, and we've always been pretty transparent, happy to get in a headlock and negotiate the service fees. They're not too black and white. Appreciate that it's we're in a tricky, challenging enough sort of period for breeding horses in this country, and particularly if you're not at the real sort of pointy end. So we're mindful of that. Look, I'm really proud of when our stallions get big numbers like that. It goes to show that I think we've priced them well, and we've sort of backed in the right horse that's going to suit the appetite of breeders.
Yeah, certainly gives them a chance if they're priced well and they patronise that well.
I think so. I think you've got to be cognizant of that. You've got to ensure that the breeders get a bit of a lick of the ice cream, sort of back the other way. So, I think setting your service fees at a really appropriate sort of level is unbelievably important.
And to wrap it up, Robbie, I mean, it's pretty safe to say that Rosemont's making a nice splash in the industry. From a training perspective, you must be impressed by seeing their growth over the last sort of 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Ryan said it, one of the common phrases, it takes 20 years to be an overnight success. And especially when you're breeding horses and developing stallions, and a lot of these horses don't have a flow on of runners for several years by the time they're born and grown up and so on. So it's not an easy caper, but to see the level of investment and the success, and everything's starting to grow and take shape now. So with Seamus, as you said, 6 Group 1 wins and things like that. I mean, it's quite an amazing stat. So HANSEATIC, all these other stands are so young. So the future looks quite exciting.
Yeah, and we could probably keep talking for hours about the alliance and all the other exciting things that are happening, but we might wrap up there. It's been fantastic, Ryan. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it, and I'm sure that those watching will find this as intriguing as Robbie and myself.
Yeah, no, thanks. It's been great to hop on. Really enjoy seeing what you guys are doing. You're really dynamic and think a bit left field in the way you approach your business, and it's not you have to be living under a rock to see the strike rate of the stable over the last sort of 12 or 18 months go through the roof, and I think it's well, Robbie might call himself a bit of a veteran of the trade now, but I think it feels like a young stable on the way up, and one that we're really proud to have a horse in the stable with you guys, and keen to get some more in there. But yeah, I'd urge anyone out there that is thinking about getting involved in is certainly give Corey or Robbie or Matt a call and get on the train, because I think you guys are really going places.
Thanks very much, Ryan. I think there's really appreciate that, and it's nice, when you put in the hard yards like you do, and we're the same, growing a stable. So it's good to see it all come to fruition. But there's one guy that will be happy that we're coming to a close, Corey. That's the gardener. He's still waiting to get his job back.
Yeah, he mustn't be watching the webinar.
No.
All right.
Good on,
Thanks very much, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Cheers, boys.